Hello and welcome to Kentucky Historic Travels celebrates America's 250th birthday. As we begin to celebrate that next year, but I wanted to get a head start on my videos as I will be covering Kentucky counties that are named for Revolutionary War patriots under my series that I'm calling Let's Talk. As I have previously stated in my videos, Kentucky has 120 counties. Approximately 67 of those are named for Revolutionary War patriots or significant players of the Revolutionary War. So it's going to take me a minute to get through all of those individuals. So I wanted to get this series started a little earlier. So already I've completed 2 videos. My first video covered Lincoln County, which was named for Benjamin Lincoln. My second video covered Jefferson County, named for Thomas Jefferson, and today's video is covering Fayette County. Now, all 3 of these counties were created in 1780. Kentucky was not yet a state. Kentucky, what would become Kentucky, belonged to Virginia, and so all 3 of these were named by Virginia, and therefore they are not named for Kentucky individuals. Okay, instead they are major players of the Revolutionary War. So, who was Fayette County named for? Well, we're going to take a look. Fayette County, Kentucky was named for the Marquis de Lafayette. Now, let's be honest, the Marquis de Lafayette, his history is not really well known in the U.S. today. We've done really poorly of keeping his history in our story. I feel like with the America 250 and earlier this year in May, when we looked at his return to America that happened in 1825, that we brought some of his history back to life. So I feel like we're doing a better job than we have done previously. But even with that, you still may not know a whole lot about Marquis de Lafayette, seeing that he was French. So let's take a look at him and why he was likely to have been chosen to be for a county to be named for him. So the second bullet there shows his very lengthy French name. I am not French, and I took French in high school, and I did poorly at it. So I am not going to attempt to pronounce that name for you. So we're just going to call him the Marquis, or I might call him Lafayette. He was born in 1757 in France. He was born to an illustrious aristocratic family. Sadly, he lost his parents very early. At the age of 2, his father dies, and at the age of 13, his mother dies. So he loses his parents very, very early on. However, he ends up with a huge inheritance. So I guess there's a little bit of a positive to all of that negative. He ends up being one of the wealthiest men in France due to his inheritance from his family. Now, because he is one of the aristocratic families, at the age of 16, he becomes the second lieutenant of a regiment there in France. That regiment is commanded by his uncle, who was the Marquis de Noailles. And again, I'm not French, so I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. Noailles was how that last name is pronounced. In 1774, because again, he's from an aristocratic family, he is married to Adrienne de Noailles. Again, probably not pronouncing that correctly. They were the Marquis that he was working for, his uncle, as well as Adrienne that he marries, came from the same aristocratic family. And this was an arranged marriage. She was 14 and a half years old when she married the Marquis de Lafayette in 1774. And even though it was an arranged marriage, they ended up being truly, fully in love and really did a great job of caring for each other and loving each other. Her story is amazing if you have not read the book that is written about her. But this video is not about Adrienne. This video is about the Marquis. So we're going to get back to his history. He marries her in 1774. In 1775, he joined the Freemasons Association. And that is actually what led him to deciding to support the colonists in their fight against British taxation. Now, in the beginning, the colonists didn't necessarily want freedom. They just wanted to be without taxation, and they wanted some representation if they were going to be taxed. In the end, of course, that's not how that worked, and benefit for the United States, because obviously we did end up fighting for our independence from Britain, and Lafayette ended up working on our side. With the Declaration of Independence, when the signing of the Declaration of Independence happened, the Marquis said, "Sign me up, I'm there, I'm all in." He said, "I'm going to go help the colonists." So he bought a ship, he traveled to the United States, he volunteered in the Continental Army under General George Washington. Now, he was volunteering. He was not asking for any land, for anything at all in return for his service. Now, he is 19 when he arrives here in the continental U.S., or what would become the continental U.S. He's 19. He's 19 when he arrives. Young, but if you think about it, in this time period of the 1700s, I'm supposing that really wasn't very young. We know very well that they were marrying young, and that was quite normal. And I'm supposing that's because their life longevity was not there. In 1777, he became Major General of the Continental Army. In that same year, he was at the Battle of Brandywine. It was there that he was shot in the leg. Also, in that same year, he received command of a division, and he stayed with his troops that he had command of at Valley Forge. He didn't leave his troops at Valley Forge and go into a nice warm house someplace. He stayed with them through that terrible winter of 1777. In 1779, he travels back to France, and he's actually traveling back to France to get some help. And thank goodness he did, because we probably may not have won our independence from Britain had we not had the French help that we did. So he travels home to France in 1779, and he returns back to the United States in 1780. And he returns with 5,500 French infantrymen on the way. They arrive shortly after he returns, and they arrive in Rhode Island, being commanded by Rochambeau. All right, if you're a Hamilton fan, you know that name. Now, here's the big thing. With Rochambeau and his troops, with Lafayette and his armies that he's in command of, and with General George Washington, with the three of them together, they actually turn the tides of this war. In 1781, the Marquis and his troops prevent the occupation of Richmond, Virginia. If you watched my first video on Benjamin Lincoln, you know that we lost Savannah, Georgia, which was a huge loss to the colonists. And we really were not doing well in the war at all. So for the fact that when the Marquis comes along in 1781 and he prevents that being taken by the British, that is a huge win for the colonists. So the Marquis is there, and he is the one who helps make that happen. Now, it's 1781 in October that we find the Marquis and his troops preventing Cornwallis from retreating at Yorktown. If they had not prevented that retreat, then what was the last battle of the Revolution may very well not have turned out to be the last battle, and it may have ended quite differently. But the Marquis prevents Cornwallis and his troops from retreating. And again, as I stated, between his troops, Rochambeau's troops, the French troops, the Continental Army led by General George Washington, in October, on specifically October 19th of 1781, we find that Cornwallis surrenders. And that is considered to be the final official battle of the Revolutionary War. Although we know that Kentucky ended up having a battle later, but, and I say Kentucky again, that would have been the counties of Virginia. But the militia there in Kentucky didn't hear word of the ending of the Revolutionary War at that time. So that's how that ended up happening after the surrender of Cornwallis. Now, here's what I find very interesting. This surrender and this major play by Lafayette in 1781, Fayette County was named in 1780. So this major play that he made came a year after the county was named for him. So he was already significant as far as how important he was to the Revolution in 1780 when Virginia picked him to name a county for. So it's kind of fascinating to me that he was already a major player. He had already come to our relief, I suppose, right? He came to help us out. And so in 1780, they pick him. And in 1781, he is there at the surrender. Now, after the American Revolution, the Marquis de Lafayette becomes a major international anti-slavery advocate. He ends up obtaining rank of Major General in a French army, so he is back in France. In 1789, he actually works with Thomas Jefferson to write the Declaration of the Rights of Men and of the Citizen. And this actually helps launch the French Revolution. So Thomas Jefferson plays a role in the French Revolution, and Fayette plays a role in the American Revolution. I said Fayette. Lafayette plays a role in the American Revolution. Now, even though he's over in France, I still want to kind of wrap up what happens with Lafayette, because he was a huge, right? He's the one who helps move the French Revolution and get that launched. So everybody loves him in France. But sadly, the tables turn on him, and I'm not going to get into that history enough to explain it. If you're interested, definitely check it out. But the tables turn on him, and he ends up actually having to flee France during the French Revolution. He is actually captured in Austria. I'm going to try that again. He is captured in Holland by the Austrians because France had declared war on Austria. So he is captured, and he is kept captive from 1792 to 1797. And it's actually his wife, Adrienne, who comes and moves in with him while he's captured, which is just amazing to me. So their story is incredible and definitely worth reading about if you're interested enough to check it out. Now, again, he is released. He goes back to France. And then in 1824, so we're jumping quite a few years, but in 1824, the Marquis receives an invite from President James Monroe and asks him to return to the U.S. for a farewell tour of America. When he does do that, in 1824, between 1824 and 1825, he actually visits all 24 states that we have at that time. And in his farewell tour of America, he receives affection and gratitude from everyone along the way, as he is the last surviving general of the American Revolution. So this was a huge event that took place. Now, what was that having to do with Kentucky? Well, he visits Kentucky in May of 1825, and that's what I was saying earlier in the video, is that we'd had celebrations this past May throughout Kentucky celebrating Lafayette, and you can do some more research on those, and I did a post about that on Facebook. While he was here in Kentucky, he visited Louisville, Lexington, Frankfort, Shelbyville, Georgetown, and Maysville, which was a huge tour during that time, thinking about the fact that they're traveling by carriages and horses. He is here in Kentucky from May 12th to May 21st. And while he is here, he attends grand balls that were held for him. Exquisite dinners are held for him. And he is just loved on from beginning to end. Okay. His last visit was in Maysville. He starts in Louisville and makes his way around back up to Maysville because, of course, he comes in through the Ohio River to Louisville. He exits through Maysville, Ohio, and into the Ohio River and then into Cincinnati, Ohio. So that's kind of his loop there. His story is also a little interesting. I'll give you this extra little tidbit, is that his boat crashes and sinks while he's on his way to Louisville. So it's incredible. Definitely check that out. Check out my post a few weeks back. Now, he finishes his tour in 1825, returns to France, and in 1834, he dies. So just 9 years later, a little less than 9 years, he dies in Paris, France, and he is buried at the Picpus Cemetery. And here's a little interesting tidbit I'll show you here. These are not my photos. This is one place I have not been. I have not been to France. So the left photo here is his burial site. You'll see there that he has the United States flag on his gravesite. Now, here's a little interesting bit of information. So he is buried in the French ground there in Picpus. But he actually, when he returned to the U.S. in 1825, he actually brought soil back from Bunker Hill. And he knew then that he wanted that soil to be put in his burial spot. He wanted to be buried with soil both from France and from the U.S. because he fought for the independence of both France and the United States. How amazing is that? Buried in French soil, covered in U.S. soil. How incredibly awesome is that? So he was a defender of independence for everyone, for everyone. The photo on the right is a photo of the chateau that he was born in 1757. I believe that is also the chateau that he died in. That is his family home, and it still is standing today. So it's a fairly current picture. So I hope you have enjoyed and now understand why Fayette County was named for the Marquis de Lafayette. Now, my 3 videos have these resources. These are the places where I've found my information for these 3 videos that I just finished, covering the 3 counties created in 1780. Now, we will continue this march on through our Revolutionary War patriots. My next county up is Nelson County, and we'll be talking about who Nelson County was named for. And we'll also take a look at the map to see just how those 3 original counties were broken down even further as we move along through our Kentucky history. So I do hope that you will come back for my more videos as I create more and cover more history. And hopefully I will get better at this the more I do these, with this being only my 3rd and only right here in my kitchen. I feel like I'm doing fairly well. So maybe we'll get a little bit better with each video we make. So stay tuned. We have so much more history. Please make sure that you subscribe on my YouTube channel. Please make sure to follow on Facebook. While we are focusing on these videos on America 250, I still am posting history galore over on my Facebook and my website that are not necessarily America 250 related. So still more great Kentucky history on these 3 different social media. So please come back, stay tuned. We hope to see you next time when we talk about Nelson County, Kentucky. as Kentucky Historic Travels celebrates America's 250th birthday. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.